The Niqabi Diary Season 1 illustrated book is now available in paperback. Own your copy now by clicking the link in the description box. Assalamu alaikum. You're listening to the Niqabi Diary series by The Pen, the sound of sisters raising their voices with the written word. I'm your host Samar, and thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Chelsey. How are you?
I'm good. Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair for joining us today. I'm going to talk to Sister Chelsey, who we have interviewed before for the Niqabi Diary. She's episode 22 of season 1. Check it out if you haven't already, inshallah. But yes, Chelsey has been writing a book, which is due for release, inshallah, hopefully before Ramadan, I think. Sister Chelsey, if you could tell us, what's the name of your book? What's it called? And what was your motivation to start writing this book?
Okay, Bismillah. The book is called Difficulties of a Convert. There is a subtitle. It's one of those where you're like, as an author, you're just kind of like, oh my gosh, I feel like the title needs more. Mm-hmm. But basically, it is Difficulties of a Convert, an American convert's advice through the trials of finding peace in Islam. And so my motivation for writing the book in the first place was, as I spoke in the last podcast, I used to be on YouTube, and a lot of my focus was videos towards converts, to help women in their journey to Islam, some basic information about Islam, and trying to inspire sisters to, wear the hijab. And in a few of my videos, I think it was about 5 videos, I actually did this series when I was pregnant with my first son called Difficulties of a Revert. And I decided to call the book Difficulties of a Convert simply for general basis. I think a lot of converts, or a lot of people who aren't familiar with Islam, they think of a revert as somebody who was a Muslim and is now coming back to Islam. And although we know that as Muslims to be true, mm-hmm. when you say that to a non-Muslim or somebody who's converting, it doesn't make sense to them because they don't understand that belief that we have in Islam. Right. So that's why mm-hmm. outside of the YouTube videos from Difficulties of a Revert, I decided to call it Difficulties of a Convert just to be more generally understood by the public. And so I was motivated to write this book, one, because I've always wanted to write a book. I'm not going to say I was one of those people in high school that just like read books the whole day long, every day, and just like being a creative writer is what I dreamed to be. No, I just always wanted to write a book. I mean, it was just something I always wanted to do. And I dabbled in writing a few fiction books, but I never progressed very far in these fiction books. And maybe it's because I wasn't very skilled in writing. Maybe I didn't have a vision. But I got to this point in my life a couple years ago where I was like, you know what? I got off YouTube, but I still feel like I have this voice that I want to put out there. I still feel like I have things to share and things for other sisters to benefit from, or, to help other sisters. Especially as converts, you really don't, it can be challenging sometimes to find information on converts to Islam, even on YouTube. You're just going to find convert stories. You can find hundreds of convert stories on YouTube, but to have a convert actually sit there and talk about their struggles and the things that they've gone through and the advice that they would give to a fellow sister, sometimes that can be kind of challenging. You might only find that from a couple people on YouTube doing that. And I thought, I actually think there's probably more people reading these days than we think. I do think that digital content, videos, podcasts are, much probably more popular to a younger audience. But I do think that there is this big group of people who still kind of refer to books for their knowledge or entertainment. And I figured, well, if I'm not going to be, on my YouTube channel anymore, maybe I can do something written, and inshallah, if it benefits people, it benefits people. If it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, oh well, I put the effort out there, I put the intention out there, and alhamdulillah. So when I was thinking about what I would write about, naturally it seemed, you know, only fitting to write about my religion because that is the thing that I am most passionate about. So when I started going through the topics, I was like, okay, I could write about hijab, I could write about this, I could write about that. And then I remembered, you know, many sisters, even after I left YouTube, kind of came to me and were like, you know, I have a sister or a friend or whatever who kind of wants to look into Islam. And, you know, those difficulties of a revert series really helped me. And I'm wondering if maybe you could share them with me so I could share them with her and things like that. And that actually kind of gave me the thought of, well, why not write a book that's kind of a self-help sort of advice book, acknowledging a lot of the challenges and trials that converts go through, but expand on it. So instead of having the 5 video series, now I have a 10 chapter book. And, you know, and in each chapter, I kind of talk about, you know, the challenges, the trials that a convert may go through, starting from converting all the way up to getting married, and towards the end, you know, just continuing to reflect on themselves and their practice. And so I think what was just most inspiring was knowing that there's so many people converting to Islam every single day, alhamdulillah. And despite the fact that we have many people also leaving Islam, the people converting are almost making up for that. And we know that that's to be said. You know, I believe it was Allah who said it in the Quran that, like, you know, if you want, of course not by word, but like if you're going to leave Islam, it's okay. I have other people who will replace you type idea. That's kind of the concept. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening. And, you know, and I was thinking, you know, as converts, we struggle to find information, period. We don't know where to look. We don't know what to do, how to pray. You know, how do we tell our parents? You know, like there's so many things that are just so up in the air and out there that we just are like, I'm so overwhelmed. And I thought maybe if I could put something small into a book that could even just benefit a couple converts coming into Islam to say, okay, this is what she went through. And it seems like this is what a lot of converts go through. Maybe this is something that I can, you know, pace myself with, or this is something I can prepare myself for. Or, you know, I have a few chapters that actually break down, you know, beginner's knowledge, you know, so I actually have a diagram in the back of the book that has illustrations on how to pray.
MashaAllah.
You know, I have like in the appendix, I have like common words and phrases for the convert to start to learn and know and understand with kind of its definition and examples. You know, so even like little things like that, I thought, you know, man, this is a book I wish I had when I converted.
Yes, subhanAllah.
So
That
I think
sounds really good.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So what would you say your biggest challenge was with writing this book?
I think the biggest challenge was at one point I got writer's block. You know, I probably, you know, I would say it's just being a mother and, you know, and taking care of my children and having house duties to do and things like that. After I got the inspiration to write, I started writing and I was like a machine. I was like nonstop every day. I was writing because just things were flowing because at that point, you know, I mean, I had already done the 5 videos. So I was just kind of, you know, expanding on those videos and kind of putting it into Word and just trying to make it seem a little bit more professional, you know, turning it into writing versus it being on videos. So the first 5 chapters were pretty easy to write. Going into chapter 6 and even chapter 7 was pretty easy. When I got to chapter 8 is actually called Misconceptions. So okay. I was stuck because I was like, okay, misconceptions. There's so many misconceptions about Islam. Which one do I choose? And there were a couple topics that I was going to get into, but it does require a little bit more knowledge on the history and details, and there might be differences of opinion. And I was very nervous to get into that, although I thought that these were misconceptions that are very good for a convert to know, because more than likely, you know, as converts, we get thrown these misconceptions in our face from our families, our friends, oh, well, what about this? Do you really want to convert to a religion where the person is like this and the religion is like this and people are saying this? And you're just like, no, that's not true. But you don't know how to explain yourself because you don't have the knowledge. And so I kind of was at a standstill on this chapter. And this chapter actually put me behind about a year. I've been writing this book off and on for almost 2 years. And once I got to that chapter 7 and I was just stuck, I was like, okay, I'm just going to take a month break. And then I took a 2-month break and then I took a 3-month break. And then I had a baby and, and so, that's 9 months and then 6 more just to get used to the baby. And, and then so before you know it, a year and a half has passed. And finally I got to this point where I was like, man, like there's more things in your life that you want to achieve, talking to myself, obviously. And I'm like, you know what, that book that you started, you need to finish that. And so finally I just set it in my head. I'm a very stubborn person. I'm very self-motivated. So once I say something to myself, I have to do it. And so alhamdulillah, so that was probably the biggest challenge I had, was just at that point of chapter 7, I just totally had a writer's block for about a year and a half.
Wow, subhanallah. Well, I think there's some authors that would tell us that there's no such thing as writer's block. You need to just sit down and write. So that's
exactly.
Inshallah, for your next book, you'll have to remember that one. Inshallah.
Yes, since I've been studying a lot more, because I actually do have a few more books that are kind of in progress. Yeah, actually, in doing some more researching and studying just on writing, of course, while I've been writing this book, I hear that constantly, is that there's no such thing as writer's block, and a good writer just writes. They wake up every day and they just write because they have to. That's how you grow your craft.
Even if you think it's like that you're writing rubbish, you should just write and just try not to read what you've written as well. Just keep writing until everything that's in your head is just out, and then you can review it later on. Yeah. So what would you say, who would you say your biggest supporters were when writing the book?
So I honestly, I'd probably say my parents. My husband, he's very supportive of whatever I want to do. But he understands that, like, I have my own things going on. So he tries not to get into it too much. And he's like, okay, yep, you do what you do, good, I'm proud of you, but my mom, she, like I said to you earlier, she's not somebody who like dives into hobbies or has a lot of interest and things like that. She likes to read, she likes entertainment and stuff like that, so I think that, she respects, what I do, and she finds it interesting, and and so she's always been, my number one supporter in anything that I do. She just wants me to be happy. She wants me to be successful in whatever it is I want to be successful in. And my father, even, even though he was a bit disagreeable on me converting to Islam, I'm daddy's little girl, so I'm the only girl. And, so for him, he, like he was saying this last week, he's like, you're a machine, and he says that in a sense that, like, he sees that I'm here, I'm homeschooling my children, I'm a stay-at-home mother taking care of my home, I'm a full-time chef pretty much, we're not ordering out at all, like hardly ever, and then on top of this, I run my little at-home business, and I'm trying to write and do this and that for myself and blah blah blah. So my dad, he just sees me as like, like any father should see their daughter, in my opinion, that they're just the greatest, they're the best, they can't do any wrong, and so he, so even though he might not be interested in the book, he probably won't read the book. He just thinks that it's amazing that I have such ambition, I guess. So he's always been a very big supporter of everything I do as well.
Alhamdulillah. I think that's great as well, because at least as your parents, they can see that becoming a Muslim hasn't stopped you from having a life or achieving or striving to, reach your goals. and being
Yes.
ambitious.
Yes. Yeah, and I
Alhamdulillah.
think if anything, after converting, I'm actually much more ambitious than I ever was before.
Alhamdulillah. So, sister, what would you advise somebody, another sister, another Muslimah who is, contemplating writing a book? What kind of advice would you give her?
I would say come up with an idea, and like we said a little bit earlier, just start writing. I mean, of course, for me, I struggle to even say that like I'm a writer. So my advice is mainly just on what I've heard, what what I've listened to other authors say, as well as my very very small amount of experience in this. And it's just since I've been writing, alhamdulillah, I have actually had quite a few Muslim sisters reach out to me saying, "Oh wow, it's so great that you're publishing a book. I actually write too." And so now that I've kind of put that out there, it seems as though I'm attracting more Muslim women who also have, the inspiration, to want to write. And they have admitted to kind of just struggling to get through that first chapter. And I think the thing is that depending on what genre you're trying to get into, whether you're writing a novel, whether you're writing nonfiction, I think there does have to be kind of a solid idea of what you're trying to convey. And then you just have to like run with it. Like you can't sit there constantly questioning yourself, because we know that, with writing a novel, from what I've been researching, because I actually do have a novel, inshallah, in the future. I kind of I giggle at myself about that, because I'm not much of a storyteller. I'm an educator. That's how I feel, anyways. And so, although I have this thought in my mind, I'm like, oh, we'll see what happens, inshallah. But so with that, it's just kind of like they constantly talk about how many edits you're going to be doing with that. So the fact that you can even get the story on paper, that first draft, is going to be an achievement in itself. And then you're naturally going to grow in that, because you're going to become a better writer. By the time you're done writing your draft, you're already going to be a better writer, a much better writer than you were that 6 months before or a year before or whatever. When it comes to nonfiction, I think, because for me, my book is nonfiction. So it comes down to just knowing what you're talking about. And I think that's why I started off with a book that is so close to home, because I'm a convert. So what do I know best but to be a convert in Islam? What do I know best except for the experiences that I've gone through that are quite relatable to most converts, generally speaking. So you really need to know what you're talking about. You need to get your facts together, and outlines, I think, are much more important in nonfiction probably than they are in fiction. Sometimes you can kind of wing it with fiction. But I know that writing that outline for my book now was very helpful. And I think that can kind of set the pace and the motivation, because I think when you realize what you want to talk about, it's much easier to talk about it. But if you start writing not really knowing like where you're going with it, it can be much more challenging. And you might every time you end a chapter, you think, oh well, what's the next chapter going to be?
Yeah.
So I think if a sister wants to write a nonfiction book, I definitely think an outline really would help to start the process. And it would be much more inspiring to say, oh, okay, now I can see into the future. I'm not going to have this block. Those are probably the few, tidbits of advice that I would give, just as like I said, a very humble, modest beginning writer myself.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Okay, mashallah, that's brilliant. So inshallah, for the listeners, Sister Chelsea's book will be out hopefully before Ramadan of 2021, right?
Inshallah.
That's what we're aiming for, inshallah. Okay, and definitely we'll put link in the description to your Instagram account where you've been marketing your book and keeping people up to date with the progress of publishing and everything, so that when it does come out, inshallah, people can be able to get hold of it, inshallah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it'll be available on Amazon, so I think with that it'll be available everywhere in the world.
Inshallah, that's great.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, it's good. It's nice to see that sisters are doing different things. Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I know, and I think it's kind of one of those, like, the energy that you put out is always the energy that you attract. So
Exactly.
I've
Yeah.
noticed I'm noticing more and more how many Muslim writers I'm seeing. You know, even just the other day, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna buy this sister's book. You know, purely, I mean, not purely out of support. I'm also interested to read her book. You know, but I do think that it's really important for women like us who have that stereotype of being oppressed and not succeeding in things, and you know, not being normal. I guess it seems like, you know, the stereotype is for Muslim sisters, especially those who choose to wear the hijab and then even further choose to veil their faces. And I remember there was an interview with Naomi Roberts. I think it was with Dops TV, I think it was. And she was even saying, you know, that there were like agents and things of that nature that were telling her, you know, if you took your face veil off, you know, you'd be so much more popular, or you'd be so much more successful. And I remember what she said is, you know, why would I do that when Allah has given me the success that I have now and I veil my face?
Yeah,
You
alhamdulillah.
know, and it was such a beautiful statement. I was thinking, like, yeah, like, you go, girl. You
Yeah,
know, so I
alhamdulillah.
think that it's so important for women like us to try and kind of, we almost have to forcefully push ourselves up into the forefront to, you know, to prove that stereotype, you know, incorrect. And if we're just going to sit back and say, oh, I think I'm going to write a book. No, I can't. No, do it, because you'll just be that next sister that's going to put herself out there and be like, look, I'm showing you all that, you know, your misconception, your stereotype is incorrect, because here we are, and here she is, and here she is. And mashallah, we'll end up having a future of highly successful, motivated Muslim women, like really putting a true face to Islam, I believe.
Alhamdulillah. Inshallah. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair, sister.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing you know, your book with us, and yeah, we're really looking forward to it. I definitely am. I can't wait to read it, inshallah. That's going to be one of my priority reads once it comes out, inshallah.
Thank you. Inshallah. I try not to make it too long. I think it's roughly like 132 pages or so. It hasn't fully been
I
formatted
should be able
just
to
yet,
get through
but
that pretty quickly then, inshallah, because I like a book
yeah.
I can just like, I'm so busy, I don't think I have enough time to read as much as I would like, and sometimes
Yes.
I think when I stop to like do something like just read a book, like that's the time when the sleep just wants to hit me. So I'd rather
Oh,
something that I
yeah.
can just like, you know, really just kind of chow through quite quickly. Otherwise, it's going to take me a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I need to be like really dedicated to just sit down and get the book read like quite quick. So yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yes, I almost feel like I feel accomplished when I've finished a book. So sometimes when
Yeah,
it's small,
yeah.
you can feel accomplished over and over and over again.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Great. Okay. Well, yeah. Inshallah, we're going to put all the links to the where people can find your book once it comes out, your IG accounts, so that people can contact you, inshallah. And yeah, that's
Sure,
great.
thank you.
Inshallah. Okay. Take care. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you.